Hello everyone, Jonathan here from Wild Cockatiel Games, Unity game programming for beginners, and welcome back to the series. It's been a little while since I made the last video, so let's get right back into things, and hopefully you remember where we left off. Okay, so the first thing is that this snakehead was a little too big at the end of the last video and was overlapping with itself. So we're just going to select both of the prefabs in here and change the scale to 0.6 on both the X and the Y. I've already tested out this value, so it should work. And when we collect a food piece, we see that the snake head and tail no longer overlap. Of course, there's more elaborate ways to fix this, but we're just going to go with a simple one for now. And we can also see that we can see the snake head or the new tail piece spawning up there. So that just means we made the Y a little too low, which we just determined over here in the spawn position. So if we just up this to 5 and 7, and then try it out again, which one? Unity, there we go. And if we try it out again, we should no longer see that tail appearing. Great. Okay, so in this video, what we're really going to do is make it so that the food regenerates when we collect it. It appears somewhere else. We don't want multiple food pieces in the scene, so we're just going to delete food objects number 2 and 3. Now, we're not going to generate a new food piece. We're not going to create a separate object. We're just going to move this existing one around. That's actually better for system resources, especially if you have a bigger game. It won't really make a difference for this, but it is just a cool way of learning how to do something in a different way. So let's take a look. If we move this down here, we're going to need to know where our X and Y coordinates are for this food piece. And we can see that it's about that the bottom left corner is at -9 and -5, roughly, but we don't want the food to spawn outside the scene. So if we just make this -8 and -4, we can see that's roughly the bottom left quadrant of our screen with some additional space on the left and right. And on the upper right, that should just be the identical positive coordinates, 8 and 4. So let's make it so that the food spawns between these values. If your values are different, that's fine, but just try to pick nice, even, round integers. We don't want to deal with decimal places for this spawn area. Now, if we go into the food script, remembering that we're going to be dealing with 8 and 4, -8 and 4, instead of destroying the game object down here, we're going to create a new function, and we're going to call it private void move food, open close parentheses and squiggly brackets. And when the snakehead collides, we're just going to call that function here by saying move food. And what's going to happen is that we're going to move the food object to a new position by saying transform.position equals new vector 2, but then it's going to be equal to what? Well, we could just create some values here, just for an example, and say -2 and +3. And then the first time we collect this food piece, that should automatically move to a new area. So if we just try that out, move that out of the way, collect this, and it does. It moves here. But if we collect it again, it's going to look like it's not moving. That's because we're just basically telling it to go to the same spot. So that's not going to work. What we need to do is randomly select a new X and Y coordinate between those ranges every time. So instead of just determining some values, we're going to make them equal to a random number. And we're going to try to keep these values even. So we're just going to declare an integer, not a float, because integers don't use decimal places. And we're going to create int xpos. And we're going to make this equal to random.range. And we're going to just plug in those values here that we decided for the X, -8 and actually it's not +8, we're going to select +9. That's because when using random.range, the upper value is exclusive. That means it will never be selected. It's just the way the programming works. So you actually have to select one value higher. Now, if we were using a float value, this would basically be saying it could select all the way from -8 to 8.999. But we don't want that. So in this case, we're basically just telling it, pick a value between -8 and 8, as crazy as that looks. And for the Y, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say it's equal to random.range -4, and what's the upper? Well, it's 1 higher than 4, so 5. And now we can just tell it to be equal to these random values, and by saying xpos and ypos. Now, if we save it and test this out again, let's put this food at a standard integer value first. Make that to 2 and 1 for starters, just because that sounds good. Let's pick up this food. Oh, and there it goes, appearing down here at the bottom of the screen. And if we pick it up again, it's now in the very upper right. So it's taking a while to move around, but we can deal with that. We can make the snake speed up as we collect food. We can shrink the play space and just move some of these values around, etc., etc. But for now, this is looking more and more like a proper snake game. So that is enough for this video lecture. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.